Across the infinite dark, where universes fold into one another like pages in a book no god dares read, 3 moments align. In the first, a man stands amid the corpses of divinity itself. His name is Kefka Palazzo, and he is laughing. Not the laughter of joy, but the sound madness makes when it realizes the joke was always on those who believed. Around him, the ruins of the warring triad smolder gods reduced to ash and irony. Magic bleeds from the sky like paint from a torn canvas. He has become what he always knew he would, the punchline to existence itself. And in that moment, as he spreads his arms wide beneath a sky that screams in colors no sane mind should witness, he feels it a pull, a resonance, an echo from somewhere else. Somewhere that also knows the taste of broken hope. In the second moment, within a chamber so vast that shadows themselves bow in reverence, another figure waits, Emperor Snoke. He does not laugh. He does not need to. Laughter is for those who doubt their own supremacy. He sits enthroned in darkness, his ruined flesh a testament to power that consumes even its vessel. Before him, the galaxy bends. Through carefully woven lies and meticulously crafted fear, he has shaped destinies and broken lineages. The Force itself whispers his name with something approaching dread. But now, in this isolated moment, he feels something unexpected, a tremor in the web of control he has spent lifetimes spinning. Not a threat, not yet, but somewhere in the dark between stars, something else understands what it means to pull strings until reality dances. In the third moment, there is only blood and ecstasy. Sukuna, the king of curses, stands atop a mountain of his own making, a mountain built from the bodies of sorcerers who thought themselves strong enough to challenge him. He is ancient beyond reckoning and utterly unconcerned with anything resembling morality. Where Kefka mocks and Snoke manipulates, Sukuna simply indulges. Carnage is not strategy. It is art. It is truth. It is the only honest language the universe speaks. As he watches the light fade from the eyes of the last warrior foolish enough to face him, he feels it too, that strange vibration, that call from beyond the borders of his world. And unlike fear or caution, what rises in him is pure, childlike curiosity. What new pleasures might exist in a place that resonates with his nature so perfectly? The Force has many names across many realities: the lifestream, cursed energy, magic. In truth, they are all fingers of the same hand, the fundamental energy that binds existence together and tears it apart in equal measure. And now, that hand spasms. Deep within the cosmic infrastructure, in places where the Force touches the walls between universes, a convergence ignites. Not natural, not planned, simply inevitable. 3 resonances: nihilism given form, control without restraint, cruelty as philosophy vibrate at frequencies reality was never meant to withstand. The barriers crack. Kefka's laughter rises to a crescendo as the ground beneath him dissolves into light. Not the warm light of hope, but the searing white of a cosmic joke reaching its conclusion. He does not resist. Why would he? This is glorious. This is the ultimate absurdity. As the universe itself peels away around him, he spreads his arms wider, conducting an orchestra only he can hear. Snoke's eyes narrow as space itself inverts in his chamber. The shadows scream. His servants, those few permitted to witness his presence, collapse, their minds unable to process what their senses report. But Snoke does not collapse. He rises. Whatever this is, it will serve him. Everything serves him, eventually. As reality tears open before his throne, he steps forward with the certainty of one who has never truly been refused. Sukuna tilts his head as the world around him begins to fragment. Colors bleed wrong. Gravity forgets its purpose. Lesser beings would panic. Sukuna grins with all 4 eyes gleaming with anticipation. A new hunting ground. A new game. As the cursed energy around him spirals into impossible patterns and dimensions fold like origami in a hurricane, he laughs not with madness like Kefka, but with the pure delight of a predator catching a scent. Between universes, in the screaming corridor where physics becomes poetry and poetry becomes pain, 3 beings hurtle through the dark. They do not see each other, not yet. But they feel the presence, the confirmation that they are not alone in their particular flavors of damnation. The Force itself convulses around them, trying desperately to reject what cannot be rejected, to heal what cannot be healed. Somewhere far ahead, in a galaxy that has known 10,000 years of war and barely understands peace even as myth, the Force shudders. Jedi across 100 worlds wake, gasping from nightmares they cannot remember. Sith Lords pause in their meditations, sensing futures collapse into static. And on Coruscant, in the deepest meditation chambers of the Jedi Temple, ancient masters feel it, the approach of something that should not exist. 3 evils, 3 philosophies of annihilation. Madness that mocks meaning itself, control that strangles destiny, cruelty that needs no justification. And they are coming. The Force tries to scream a warning, but its voice is already fragmenting, already infected by the presence of minds that do not bend to its will. In the dark between stars, Kefka's laughter echoes. Snoke's certainty hardens into inevitability. Sukuna's hunger sharpens to a killing edge. The galaxy does not know it yet, but the game has already changed. The rules have already been rewritten. And the rewrite was done in blood, shadow, and the kind of laughter that kills hope before it can even draw breath. They are coming. In the passage between realities, where the cosmic laws that govern existence become suggestions at best, the Force meets minds it cannot comprehend. For Kefka, the sensation is hilarious. This grand cosmic energy, this binding force that lesser beings pray to and build religions around, it's trying to understand him, trying to categorize him. Light side? Dark side? He can feel it probing, searching for the box to put him in. But Kefka has never fit in boxes. He burned the boxes. He painted graffiti on the ashes. As the Force touches his consciousness, he feels it recoil not from power, but from the realization that power without purpose is a poison it has no antibodies for. He was a mage once. He understood magic as a system, a tool, a means to an end. Then he became magic. Then he broke magic. Then he stood atop the corpse of meaning and conducted a symphony of entropy. The Force tries to flow through him and finds itself conducted instead, twisted, mock turned into a joke whose punchline is its own existence. And Kefka laughs, because of course he does. This new universe is just another stage, and the Force is just another audience that doesn't realize it's part of the performance. For Snoke, the Force is familiar, disturbingly so. In his own universe, he wielded it like a scalpel, precise and deliberate. Here, in this transition, he feels it differently, vaster, older, more alive than what he knew. But alive means vulnerable. Alive means it can be dominated. As his consciousness hurtles through the cosmic wound between worlds, he reaches out with the instincts of something that has spent lifetimes bending wills. The Force responds. Not with submission, but not with total resistance either. It recognizes power. It respects strength. And Snoke has both in quantities that would break lesser beings just to witness. He feels the dark currents rise to meet him, drawn to the absolute certainty of his dominance. But there's something else, a hesitation, a flicker of uncertainty from the Force itself, as if it senses that what approaches is not merely another dark side wielder, but something that treats darkness as a tool rather than a philosophy. Snoke does not serve the dark serves him. And as the Force touches that understanding, it shivers. He feels futures begin to crystallize around his presence, threads of fate already bending to accommodate his will. But they bend incorrectly. They slip. They fray. This Force is more chaotic than what he commanded before. More alive. More. It will need breaking in. He has done this before. He will do it again. For Sukuna, the Force is food. Not literally, though. The distinction barely matters to a being who has consumed souls and cursed energy for a millennium. As his essence plunges through the dimensional rift, he feels this cosmic energy wrap around him like a living thing, curious and horrified in equal measure. It probes. It tests. It tries to understand what category of existence he represents. And Sukuna, with all the patient amusement of a tiger watching a mouse try to categorize it, simply tastes it back. The Force flinches. In 1,000 years of existence, through countless civilizations and uncountable Force sensitives, it has never felt itself treated as prey. Sukuna's consciousness is a Maw, not hungry in the desperate way of those who fear starvation, but hungry in the way of something that exists to consume and finds joy in the act. The dark side reaches for him, recognizing kinship in cruelty. The light side recoils, recognizing annihilation without redemption. But Sukuna cares for neither. He is not dark. He is not light. He is appetite given form and philosophy. As the Force flows past him, he takes a piece of it just to taste, and the Force screams. Across the galaxy, the scream manifests. On Coruscant, Jedi Master Yoda stumbles in his garden, his walking stick clattering to the stone path. For 900 years he has walked in communion with the Force. Now, for the first time since he was a youngling, he feels it panic. Not the disturbance of a Sith rising or a planet dying, those are ripples, natural to the cosmic flow. This is the Force itself crying out in a language that predates words. Something wrong has touched it. Something that should not be. In the Sith temple on Korriban, ancient holocrons shatter spontaneously. Dark side spirits that have lingered for millennia flee into the stone, choosing dormancy over exposure to whatever has just infected the cosmic stream. A young acolyte, deep in meditation attempting to pierce the veil of future sight, begins laughing uncontrollably, then screaming. Then laughing and screaming simultaneously until her mind breaks entirely and she must be restrained, sedated, forgotten. On a dozen Jedi outposts across the Outer Rim, Force-sensitive children wake crying from nightmares of three figures, one laughing, one watching, one grinning, and no amount of comfort from their instructors can convince them the nightmares were not real. The Force itself fractures, not catastrophically, not yet. But fault lines appear in the cosmic infrastructure. Futures that were certain become uncertain. Prophecies that were clear become paradoxes. The Chosen One prophecy, that cornerstone of Jedi faith, suddenly reads differently to every master who examines it, as if the words themselves are shifting, infected by something that treats destiny as a suggestion. In the unknown regions, in places where the Force runs wild and untamed, entire star systems feel the tremor. Creatures born of pure Force energy flee their native habitats. Trees that have stood for 10,000 years wither overnight. And in the deepest dark, in the spaces between spaces where ancient things sleep, eyes open. Ancient and terrible things that have not stirred since the formation of the galaxy itself now wake, sensing that the cosmic order has been compromised. Kefka laughs louder. Snoke's certainty calculates faster. Sukuna's grin widens. And the Force, that vast and timeless consciousness that has guided and shaped galactic destiny since before stars learned to burn, does something it has never done before in all its eternal existence. It hesitates. They arrive separately, as poison always does, each drop finding its own wound, each infection following its own path into the bloodstream. Kefka materializes above the industrial world of Denova, and his first act is to laugh at the sky. The planet's orbital defense grid locks onto him immediately, a single unidentified object hovering in atmosphere without ship or visible means of propulsion. Threat assessment protocols demand immediate action. Automated turbolasers swivel. Targeting computers achieve lock. And then, just before the order to fire propagates through the defense network, Kefka speaks. Not through calm channels, not through technology. He simply speaks, and every communication system on the planet, military, civilian, commercial, private, carries his voice. Tell me, he says, and his voice is delighted, conversational, like a teacher addressing students he knows will fail. What are you defending? The question hangs. No, really, I want to understand. This ugly little rock, these factories that grind your lives into, what? Credits? Purpose? Meaning? The laughter bubbles up. Oh, this is delicious. You're defending the cage you built around yourselves. You're fighting to protect your own chains. And then he raises one hand, almost lazily, and the defense grid doesn't explode. That would be too kind. Instead, every weapons platform turns. Every gun reorients. Every missile in every silo targets not the intruder in the sky, but the cities below. Panic floods command channels. Override codes are screamed into calm units. But Kefka isn't controlling the machines, he's controlling the despair. The sudden understanding in every operator's mind that their tools of protection have become tools of annihilation. Before a single shot is fired, 3,000 defense operators across the planet resign simultaneously. They simply walk away from their posts, unable to bear the sudden clarity that their purpose was always meaningless. Kefka descends slowly, conducting an invisible orchestra, and by the time he touches ground in the planetary capital, half the population has stopped working. Not rebelling, not protesting, simply stopped. Why continue? The strange man in the sky has asked a question no one can answer. Across the galaxy, Snoke's arrival is quieter. Whisper quiet, shadow quiet. The kind of quiet that only becomes visible in retrospect. He manifests in the Senate district of Coruscant, in an abandoned diplomatic suite that has been sealed for a decade following a scandal no one quite remembers the details of. One moment the suite is empty. The next, he is there, seated in a chair that should not exist, studying the galaxy through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the eternal city planet. No alarms sound. no sensors trigger. As far as any security system is concerned, the room remains empty, has always been empty, will always be empty. Snoke extends his awareness through the Force, feeling the shape of this new galaxy's political infrastructure. It is laughable. Corrupt beyond measure, yes, but corrupt in ways so predictable, so mundane. The Republic is a corpse that hasn't realized it's dead. The Jedi are priests administering last rites to their own relevance. And somewhere in the shadows he senses them, the Sith, playing their ancient games of revenge and domination with all the sophistication of children playing with matches. He almost pities them. Almost. Within 3 days, without ever revealing himself publicly, Snoke has inserted agents into 17 key Senate committees. Not through mind control too crude, too obvious. Simply through whispered suggestions to beings already inclined toward corruption. Already hungry for power. He amplifies what's already there. A senator's greed becomes policy. An aide's ambition becomes betrayal. A security chief's paranoia becomes systematic oppression. Within a week, legislation begins passing that tightens authoritarian control in ways even the legislation's authors don't fully understand. Emergency powers, security protocols, restrictions on movement framed as protection. The galaxy is already dying, Snoke realizes. It's been dying for generations. He's simply helping it understand that fact, accelerating the inevitable. By the end of the second week, whispers begin in the Senate rumors of a consultant, a strategist, someone brilliant who works behind the scenes and never accepts credit. No one has met him. Everyone knows someone who has. And on the black markets of the underworld, crime lords who have dominated their territories for decades suddenly find themselves outmaneuvered by a new player who seems to understand their operations better than they do themselves. Snoke does not conquer. He simply reveals that conquest already occurred, everyone just failed to notice until now. Sukuna's arrival is the opposite of subtle. He crashes into the frontier agri-world of Rannon like a meteor composed of malice, and within minutes the screaming starts. A farming collective notices first the way the sky tears open, the way something falls through that isn't fire or stone but somehow worse. He lands in the center of their settlement, and the impact crater radiates wrongness. Crops wither, water sours, and Sukuna stands, stretches, and looks around at the terrified colonists with all 4 eyes gleaming with interest.
Well,
He says, voice carrying effortlessly across the sudden silence. This is different. They try to run. He lets them for a moment, enjoying the way fear tastes in this new universe. Then he moves. Not with the supernatural speed of cursed techniques from his old reality, but with something new. The Force responds to him not with cooperation but with submission, ending space itself rather than let him touch it directly. The colonists don't stand a chance, but Sukuna doesn't kill them all. That would be wasteful. Instead, he takes his time, learning, experimenting. How much pressure does it take to break a bone in this universe? Do these beings' souls taste different? What happens when he channels this new energy through techniques designed for cursed energy? The survivors, and he deliberately ensures there are survivors, flee to the nearest settlement, babbling about a demon, a monster, something with 4 eyes and a smile that burns itself into your memory worse than any wound. By the time Republic peacekeepers arrive 3 days later, Rannon's capital city has become a gallery, bodies arranged in patterns, buildings torn open with surgical precision, and in the town square, written in blood 50 feet high, more. The peacekeepers call for Jedi support. The Jedi who arrive sense something through the Force that makes them hesitate at the system's edge, a presence that doesn't register as dark or light, but as hungry. They approach anyway, because they are Jedi, and courage is their burden. They find Sukuna waiting, seated on a throne he's constructed from starship debris and bones. Finally, he says, grinning, someone interesting. Across the galaxy, 3 infections spread. Despair, control, and carnage, each in their own style, each in their own time. And the galaxy, already fracturing under the weight of its own corruption and conflict, begins to feel the pressure of something worse than war, something worse than evil. The presence of beings for whom galactic civilization is not an enemy to conquer, but a toy to break. The Sith have existed for millennia as the dark mirror to the Jedi Order, philosophers of power, practitioners of passion, believers in domination through strength. They have toppled republics and broken lineages. They are not fools. They are not unprepared for darkness, but they are unprepared for this. On Korriban, in the deepest sanctum where only the most accomplished Sith Lords are permitted, a council convenes. They have felt the disturbance. 3 massive disruptions in the Force, each one a wound in the cosmic order. The Sith do not panic. Panic is for the weak. Instead, they strategize. If these are new dark side wielders, they must be recruited or eliminated. If they are weapons, they must be claimed. If they are threats, they must be understood and countered. Standard doctrine, ancient doctrine. Doctrine forged over 10,000 years of survival and supremacy. The first emissary they send encounters Kefka on Denova, now 3 weeks into his tenure as the planet's unofficial philosopher king of nihilism. The Sith Lord Darth Venaris, a master of Force persuasion and mental domination, arrives expecting to find a rogue Force user in need of education about power structures. Instead, he finds a man sitting atop the remains of the planetary governor's palace, painting. Not with brushes, with blood and ash and the shattered fragments of hope. Venaris projects authority through the Force, a crushing weight of dominance designed to make lesser beings kneel. Kefka doesn't even look up from his work. "Oh, good," he says cheerfully. Another one who thinks power means something. Venaris speaks of the Sith, of the dark side, of the philosophy of strength through passion. He offers recruitment. He threatens annihilation. He does everything the ancient protocols dictate, and Kefka listens with the patient attention of an adult listening to a child explain a game they invented. When Venaris finishes, Kefka finally looks at him. Really looks at him. "You've built an entire religion around being angry and calling it philosophy. That's adorable." Venaris attacks Force lightning arcing through the air, a killing strike that has ended dozens of lives. Kefka catches it. Not with the Force. Not with technique. He just catches it, and the energy itself seems confused about whose will it should obey. Then Kefka stands, and his presence expands not in power but in absence, like a hole in the Force shaped like a man. "Let me show you something," he says, and he shows Venaris the truth. Not with illusion or telepathy, just truth. The truth that all Sith philosophy, passion, strength, power is just another cage. Another desperate attempt to make existence mean something when it doesn't. When Venaris' ship leaves orbit 6 hours later, the Lord is catatonic, muttering about colors that shouldn't exist and laughter that echoes backward through time. The Sith Council notes the failure and recalculates. Whatever Kefka is, he is not dark side. He is something worse. The Sith's encounter with Snoke goes differently. 3 Sith Lords approach his position on Coruscant not to attack, but to negotiate. They recognize dominance when they sense it, and this new presence radiates control with a purity they respect. The meeting occurs in neutral territory, a forgotten warehouse in Coruscant's industrial depths. The Sith arrive with contingencies, backup plans, Force techniques prepared for betrayal. Snoke arrives alone, and his first words are, "I've been expecting you. Please, sit." The negotiation that follows is masterful. Snoke speaks their language: power, hierarchy, domination. He even compliments their 1,000-year survival, their mastery of manipulation. The Sith begin to relax, believing they've found a potential ally, or at least a predictable enemy. Then Snoke begins to dismantle them, not with Force powers, not with threats, with information. He names their operations, their secret identities, the locations of safe houses they've told no one about, the names of agents they planted decades ago, the contingency plans buried in encrypted archives. He knows everything, impossible amounts of everything, and he's known it since before the meeting started. "Gentlemen," Snoke says, leaning forward, his ruined face cast in shadow. "You've been playing the galaxy like a Dejarik board for a millennium. I've been playing you since I arrived. The question is not whether you'll serve me. You already are. The question is whether you'll realize it before it's too late to matter." One of the Sith Lords, Darth Seravan, a woman who has survived 3 centuries through paranoia and brutal intelligence, tries to kill him. Instant decision, no warning, a Force attack designed to rupture organs from the inside. Snoke doesn't block it. He redirects it. Seravan's heart stops not from his attack, but from her own, reflected with such precision that the Force itself couldn't tell the difference. As she collapses, Snoke stands. "I'll give you a choice, which is more generosity than you've shown anyone. Serve me openly and retain some autonomy, or continue pretending you're independent, and I'll use you anyway." The 2 surviving Sith Lords leave without agreeing. Within a month, their operations begin subtly advancing Snoke's agenda without their conscious realization. The Sith Order has encountered something it has no defense against: control more absolute than its own. Sukuna's encounter with the Sith is simplest. They send assassins, dark side practitioners trained in killing Force users. 12 of the best. Sukuna kills them in 7 minutes and sends their heads back in a cargo container with a note: "Send better toys next time." The Sith do. 30 warriors, a Sith Lord to lead them, siege weapons, and a battle plan forged from centuries of dark side combat doctrine. Sukuna treats it as entertainment. He doesn't even use all his techniques. He's still learning what his abilities do in this new universe where the Force replaces cursed energy. The battle lasts 3 hours. The Sith lose everything. Sukuna laughs the entire time, delighted by the variety of techniques, the creativity of their desperation. When it's over, he leaves one survivor not out of mercy, but so someone can report back. The message the survivor carries is worse than any threat. "Tell your masters I'm not playing their game. But if they want to keep sending snacks, I won't complain." The Sith Council meets in emergency session. They have faced Jedi, rebels, rival Sith, and ancient Force entities. They have never faced something that treats their entire philosophy as a form of entertainment. Sukuna is marked as threat priority absolute to be avoided until a solution can be forged. 3 Sith doctrines meet 3 contradictions. Kefka proves belief itself is a weapon used against believers. Snoke proves hierarchy is meaningless when someone owns all the high ground simultaneously. Sukuna proves power without purpose cannot be controlled or reasoned with. The Sith Order, for the first time in 1,000 years, considers the possibility that some darkness cannot be mastered, only survived. The Galactic Republic, that ancient institution of democracy and law, has been rotting for generations. But it is still functional, still vast, still capable of projecting overwhelming force when threatened. When reports cascade into Senate military oversight of 3 unrelated catastrophes: mass psychological collapse on Denova, authoritarian acceleration on Coruscant, and genocidal assault on Renan, the response is immediate and absolute. The Republic has fought Mandalorian crusades, Sith empires, and countless regional conflicts. 3 individuals, no matter how dangerous, can be contained with sufficient force. The Republic is wrong. The military operation designated Steel Resolve deploys simultaneously to all 3 threat zones: 50 capital ships, 10,000 soldiers, 3 Jedi task forces led by council members, orbital support, ground armor, logistics chains refined through centuries of warfare. The Republic brings the full weight of galactic civilization to bear, and for a brief moment, the Senate believes the crisis will be resolved within weeks. On Denova, the Republic fleet arrives to find the planet's entire population standing motionless in city streets, staring at the sky. Not rioting, not panicking, just standing, staring. When questioned, they respond with variations of the same sentiment. Why should we move? Where would we go? What would be the point? The psychological assessment teams call it mass catatonia, but it's not catatonia. Those afflicted can move, work, function. They simply choose not to, because Kefka has convinced them, on a level deeper than conscious thought, that purpose is an illusion and action is meaningless. The Republic attempts quarantine protocols, establishing orbital blockades to prevent the spread of whatever mimetic weapon has been deployed. Kefka finds this hilarious. He broadcasts from the planet's surface, hijacking calm networks, appearing on every screen. "Oh, you think this is contagious? You think I'm a virus?" His laughter cascades through speakers. "I'm not infecting them. I'm just helping them see clearly." Then he does something that breaks every psychological warfare protocol. He offers to debate. "Send your best philosopher, your wisest Jedi, anyone who thinks they can defend the idea that existence means anything at all. I'll wait." The Jedi Council debates sending Master Yoda himself. Ultimately, they decide against it, not from fear of physical danger, but from the terrifying uncertainty of what might happen if Kefka's nihilism proves philosophically unanswerable. Instead, they attempt containment. Jedi teams descend to the surface to use the Force to heal minds, restore purpose, rekindle hope. It works for hours, sometimes days. Then the affected individuals meet Kefka again, hear him speak again, and the despair returns deeper than before because now they've tasted hope again and rediscovered why it was always a lie. The Republic fleet remains in orbit for 3 months, slowly watching its own crews begin to question why they're following orders. 17 soldiers desert, 43 more file for psychological discharge. Kefka never kills a single Republic soldier. He simply asks them questions they can't answer, and their own minds do the rest. On Coruscant, the Republic's response to Snoke is even more insidious because at first, it appears to be succeeding. Intelligence agencies locate his base of operations. Special forces teams prepare raids. Senate committees allocate resources to root out his infiltration. Emergency legislation passes granting expanded surveillance powers. For 2 weeks, the operation proceeds flawlessly. Arrests are made. Conspirators are exposed. Snoke's network appears to collapse under Republic pressure. The Senate celebrates a clean victory. Then reality reveals itself. Every arrest was someone Snoke wanted removed: rivals, obstacles, inefficient operators. Every piece of incriminating evidence discovered was information he deliberately leaked. The emergency legislation granting expanded powers, written by senators he'd influenced months before, passed by committees he'd already compromised, enforced by security forces whose commanders owed him favors they didn't remember agreeing to. The Republic didn't dismantle his network, it became his network. And the most terrifying part is that even when this is discovered, when Senate intelligence finally realizes the scope of the manipulation, they can't untangle it. Every attempt to root out Snoke's influence accidentally strengthens it. Every investigation leads to more compromised officials. Every security protocol he helped design contains backdoors only he knows about. Palpatine himself, watching from the shadows as he orchestrates his own long game of galactic domination, feels something he hasn't experienced in decades: concern. This Snoke has accomplished in months what Palpatine's master plan required years to achieve, and did it so thoroughly that even Palpatine cannot fully trace all the connections. The Supreme Chancellor begins having his own facilities swept for surveillance. The Sith Lord, who has manipulated galactic politics for a generation, suddenly realizes he might have competition. Worse, he might already have lost without knowing it. The Republic's military operation on Coruscant doesn't fail explosively. It fails by succeeding exactly as Snoke designed it to, until the Republic no longer remembers what it was trying to accomplish. On Rannon, the Republic's response is most traditional: overwhelming military force, siege doctrine refined over millennia, orbital bombardment to soften targets, ground assault to secure objectives, capture or kill the hostile entity. The fleet arrives, weapons lock, and Sukuna, standing in the ruins of a city he spent weeks redecorating with corpses, looks up at the sky and grins. Finally, he says to no one in particular, "Someone's taking me seriously." The bombardment begins. Turbolaser of fire capable of glassing continents, concentrated on a single target zone. The impact is visible from orbit: atmosphere ionizing, ground liquefying, thermal bloom expanding. Targeting computers confirm direct hits. Casualty assessment certain. The fleet prepares to dispatch ground teams to secure the site. Then the calm channels explode with screaming. Sukuna has boarded the flagship, not through shuttle, not through stealth technology. He simply appeared in the hangar bay, laughing, drenched in blood and starship fuel. The security response is immediate: blast doors seal, Marines converge, automated defenses activate. Sukuna walks through all of it like it's weather. Not invulnerable, he takes hits, accumulates wounds, but utterly unconcerned with damage he'll heal from anyway. The Marines realize within minutes they're not fighting a Force user. They're fighting something that treats the Force like a toy and violence like art. Sukuna doesn't kill everyone. That would end the fun too quickly. Instead, he systematically dismantles Republic command structure, killing officers and leaving enlisted personnel alive to report what they've seen. He reaches the bridge, stands before the Admiral, a veteran of 40 years who has faced down separatist dreadnoughts without flinching, and asks, "Who's your strongest?" The Admiral, to his credit, doesn't break. "Jedi," he says. "We have Jedi." Sukuna's grin widens. "Perfect, cool them." The Jedi arrive, a task force of 7 led by a council member. They find Sukuna waiting in the hangar bay, seated on a pile of debris, clearly pleased. The battle that follows is legendary. Not because Sukuna wins, though he does, eventually, but because for the first time since arriving in this universe, he's challenged. The Jedi are skilled, coordinated, fighting with technique refined over centuries. Sukuna respects them enough to use techniques he'd been saving. When it ends, 4 Jedi are dead, 3 have retreated, and Sukuna has injuries that would kill anyone else. He's also laughing. "More," he says into the comms before destroying them. "Send more." The Republic's military operation, Steel Resolve, concludes after 4 months with catastrophic failure. Not a single primary objective achieved. 22 ships lost or compromised, hundreds of soldiers dead or psychologically broken, 4 Jedi dead, 7 more traumatized beyond field capability, and 3 threats now more entrenched, more dangerous, more impossible to contain. In the Jedi Temple, Master Yoda meditates on the problem and finally admits something he's never said in 900 years. Uncertain, the future has become. Lost, we may already be. It happens on a world whose name no longer matters, a Midrim colony that had the misfortune of strategic importance to all 3. Snoke had orchestrated political collapse there weeks prior, softening it for exploitation. Sukuna arrived hunting Jedi refugees who'd fled there for safety, and Kefka simply wandered in, following the pull of despair like a connoisseur following the scent of fine wine. They sense each other before they meet. 3 presences, each one fundamentally wrong in the Force, each one a contradiction the universe still hasn't processed. The confrontation begins not with violence, but with recognition. Kefka arrives first, at the colony's central plaza, where he's been entertaining himself by conducting what he calls social experiments, seeing how many people he can convince to give away everything they own, just by asking nicely and pointing out how meaningless ownership is anyway. He's up to 317 when he feels it 2 other voids in the Force, approaching from different directions. His painted face splits into a genuine smile. "Oh," he says, abandoning his experiment. "Oh, this is going to be fun." Snoke materializes from shadow at the plaza's eastern entrance. No dramatic arrival, no announcement. One moment empty space, the next a figure whose presence makes reality itself seem negotiable. He sees Kefka and assesses immediately. Threat, chaos agent, uncontrolled variable. Dangerous, but potentially manipulable. Everyone can be manipulated if you understand their core desire. He opens with control. "You've been causing disruption, wasteful. Under my guidance, your talents could achieve actual purpose. Diplomatic, strategic." The opening to a negotiation he's run 1,000 times. Kefka stares at him for 3 full seconds, then laughs so hard he has to lean against a nearby fountain for support. "Oh stars, you actually believe that? You think I have talents that want achieving? You think purpose is something I'm searching for?" He wipes tears from his eyes, still giggling. "Tell me something when you practice that speech in the mirror. Do you actually hear how boring it sounds?" Snoke's expression doesn't change, but the Force darkens around him. Not anger is inefficient, just recalculation. This one is more damaged than anticipated, more broken. Will require different approach. Before he can adapt his strategy, the 3rd presence arrives. Sukuna doesn't walk into the plaza. He appears at its center in a single movement too fast for unenhanced eyes to track, and his first words are, "Which one of you is stronger?" Direct. Simple. The question of a being whose entire philosophy can be summarized as "I want to fight interesting opponents." Kefka looks at Sukuna with genuine delight. "Oh, you're a simple one, aren't you? I like that. All muscle and murder, no pretension." He gestures dramatically. "But stronger? What does that even mean? Stronger at what? Lifting, killing, making people cry? You'll have to be specific." Sukuna ignores Kefka entirely, his attention locked on Snoke. 4 eyes narrow. You smell like you think you're in charge." It's not a question, not a challenge yet, just observation. Snoke regards Sukuna with the patient contempt of a being who has manipulated empires. "I don't think anything, I simply am." The question of strength is irrelevant when one controls the board all pieces move upon. He extends his presence through the Force, a display of dominance, not attack, just demonstration. "This is what power looks like. This is the gap between us." Sukuna feels the pressure and grins. "You're one of those, the chess player types, always thinking 12 moves ahead." He cracks his neck. "I hate chess players. Too slow, too scared to get blood on their hands personally." "And you," Snoke replies, "are a blunt instrument, useful for demolition, useless for construction." Before Sukuna can respond lightly with violence, Kefka interrupts, clapping his hands. Okay, this is adorable, really. But can we acknowledge the hilarious irony here?" He gestures between them. "You," pointing at Snoke, "think you can control everything, including us." You, pointing at Sukuna, "think strength solves everything, including boredom." And neither of you has realized that we're all here because existence itself is having a nervous breakdown, and the universe's defense mechanism was to summon its worst nightmares to speed up the process. He spins in a circle, arms spread. We're not conquerors, we're not opponents, we're symptoms. The galaxy was already dying, we're just the fever that lets it know how sick it really is. Silence. Actual silence. For a moment, even Sukuna pauses, trying to pass whether what Kefka said was profound or just nonsense. Snoke speaks first. Philosophical drivel doesn't change practical reality. Power structures exist. Hierarchies exist. And I stand at their apex. Kefka giggles. You stand at the apex of a tower made of lies, built on foundations of terror, in a galaxy that stopped believing in towers a long time ago. But sure, you're very impressive. Sukuna has had enough philosophy. Stop talking, both of you. He looks at Snoke. You want control? Try controlling this. The attack is instantaneous, a strike that combines curse technique and force manipulation in ways neither universe was designed to handle. Space tears. Reality fractures. Snoke deflects, but it costs him effort, visible effort. The first time since arrival that anything has forced him to strain. His eyes narrow. Recalculation accelerates. This one is more dangerous than anticipated, significantly more dangerous. Kefka watches the exchange like a spectator at the universe's most entertaining sporting event. Yes. See, this is what I'm talking about. No philosophy, no chess games, just honest violence. He throws his own attack not at Sukuna, not at Snoke, but at the plaza itself. Reality unravels in patches. Gravity forgets its job. Colors invert. The force screams. What follows is not a fight. Not exactly. It's three philosophies of annihilation testing each other, none truly attempting to kill because they've all realized something simultaneously. They are the only beings in this universe who understand each other. Kefka, who has never met anyone else who truly embraced meaninglessness. Snoke, who has never encountered control he couldn't break or subsume. Sukuna, who has never found opponents worth remembering. They don't unite. Uniting would require shared purpose, and none of them possess that. But they recognize each other. Three monsters, three exiles from meaning, three walking apocalypses. When the confrontation ends not from resolution, but from mutual boredom, the plaza has ceased to exist in any meaningful sense, and the three part ways with unspoken understanding. The game has changed. The galaxy now has three players who don't care about winning, only about playing. In the 6 months following their arrival, the galaxy learns to live with cosmic horror. Not because it adapts, not because it overcomes, but because extinction takes time, and between the beginning of the end and actual ending, life continues. People wake. They work. They love and fear and hope and despair. But now everything happens under the shadow of three certainties. On worlds touched by Kefka, suicide rates don't increase, instead, something worse happens. People simply stop caring. Not universally, not all at once. But in spreading circles, radiating from wherever he's been, communities lose the infrastructure of meaning. A farmer on Denova looks at her crops and asks why, and has no answer, so she stops planting. A teacher on a nearby moon reaches his classroom and cannot remember why education matters, so he dismisses his students permanently. Families sit at dinner tables in silence, not angry, not sad, just confused about what they're supposed to be doing, and why they ever thought it mattered. The Republic sends relief convoys, but what kind of relief treats philosophical collapse? Food shipments arrive to populations who've forgotten why they should be hungry. Medical supplies go unused because the sick have stopped seeing the point in recovery. Therapists and Jedi counselors attempt intervention, but Kefka's poison is insidious. He's not implanting thoughts, he's removing the foundations thoughts are built on. One Jedi healer, after 3 months of failed interventions on Denova, returns to Coruscant and requests reassignment. When asked why, she can only say, "Because he asked me why I was helping and I couldn't answer. I still can't answer." The worlds Kefka touches don't die. They stop living. And the difference becomes a philosophical nightmare the galaxy has no framework to address. On Coruscant and throughout the core worlds, Snoke's infection spreads through power structures like a virus that only affects the ambitious. Senators who months ago debated policy with passion now mechanically advance legislation they don't fully remember writing. Military commanders execute strategies that feel wrong, but that they cannot articulate opposition to. The Republic Senate, that ancient body of democratic representation, begins passing laws with unprecedented efficiency, emergency powers, surveillance expansion, centralization protocols. On the surface, it looks like government finally working. Beneath, it's the slow strangulation of everything the Republic claimed to represent. Opposition exists, but it's disorganized, fractured, always one step behind. Whenever resistance coalesces, it discovers its communication networks compromised, its funding mysteriously dried up, its leaders suffering convenient scandals. Snoke doesn't rule openly. He doesn't need to. He's constructed a situation where the galaxy willingly builds its own cage and calls it security. Citizens demand protection from the chaos of Kefka and Sukuna. Snoke provides that protection through oversight, through monitoring, through control. And with each new power granted to central authority, he tightens chains citizens don't realize they're wearing. The most insidious aspect is that many people feel safer. Crime drops in regions under Snoke's influence because he's organized it. Piracy decreases because he's controlling it. The trains run on time. The lights stay on. And if freedoms disappear quietly in the night, well, isn't security worth a little sacrifice? The Jedi sense the wrongness but cannot pinpoint its source. Every investigation leads to dead ends or loops back to investigators themselves. It's like fighting fog. No matter how many pieces you disperse, more rolls in to replace them. Master Yoda describes it as a shadow that casts itself. The more you look for its source, the more you realize you're standing in it. On the Outer Rim and in frontier territories, Sukuna's presence transforms entire regions into hunting grounds. He's not methodical about it. He doesn't have strategic goals. He simply appears somewhere, causes catastrophic violence, and moves on when bored. But the trail of his movements creates a map of devastation that refugee flows cannot escape. Colonies evacuate into the paths of his future appearances. Republic safe zones become killboxes. Jedi extraction teams arrive to find populations already slaughtered, or worse, transformed into participants in Sukuna's games. On Geonosis, he discovers the remnants of gladiatorial arenas and decides to reopen them not with willing participants, but with kidnapped civilians forced to fight while he watches, offering commentary and critique. "Come on!" he shouts at terrified civilians trying to survive. "At least try to make it interesting. Where's the technique? Where's the killing intent?" He's not torturing them for information or to break their spirits. He's genuinely trying to coach better performance. The horror of it breaks minds faster than physical pain. Republic Military Command debates planetary sterilization, destroying entire worlds Sukuna has contaminated, just to prevent his influence spreading. The debates are agonizing. How do you justify genocide as prevention? But how do you justify not doing it when Sukuna turns entire populations into extensions of his cruelty? Jedi Master Mace Windu proposes a task force dedicated solely to tracking and containing Sukuna. 300 Jedi volunteer, 14 return. Their report is simple. He's not fighting to win, he's fighting because he enjoys it. And that makes him unstoppable, because victory is irrelevant to him. The galaxy fractures under pressure of choosing which hell to endure. Systems in Kefka's shadow beg for Republic annexation, accepting tyranny over meaninglessness. Regions under Snoke's influence request military intervention from anywhere, anyone, even criminal syndicates, because at least traditional tyranny can be resisted. Outer Rim territories establish independent defense pacts, accepting they're on their own against Sukuna because Republic protection has proven worthless. And through it all, normal life continues in its diminished form. A child is born on Corellia and her parents weep with joy even as they wonder what world she'll inherit. A couple marries on Naboo, defiant in their happiness. A merchant on Tatooine negotiates a deal and celebrates a successful transaction because some part of human spirit insists on continuing even when continuation seems pointless. The Jedi Order convenes an emergency council, all available masters, from every corner of the galaxy. The debate lasts 3 days. Proposals range from final confrontation to complete withdrawal. Some argue for negotiation. Others demand exile of the three threats through force techniques that might tear the galaxy apart but would remove the infection. In the end, they choose a fourth option: documentation. If the Jedi cannot stop this, they will at least record it, bear witness, ensure that whatever survives the coming darkness knows what happened and why. It is not a decision born of hope. It is a decision born of the terrible recognition that hope might no longer be possible. The galaxy has not yet ended, but it has learned to recognize ending's shape. And that recognition changes everything, even for those who still resist, still fight, still believe that dawn follows night. Because now they know. Sometimes dawn doesn't come. Sometimes there's only darker shades of night, and the only choice is which darkness to die in. It begins with a prophecy failing. The Jedi have maintained archives for 25,000 years. Within those archives, prophecies are recorded, categorized, interpreted fragments of future sight left by seers across millennia. The most famous is the prophecy of the Chosen One, but thousands of others exist. Some are cryptic, some are clear. All share one characteristic: they have never, in recorded history, simply stopped being readable. Until now. On Coruscant, in the depths of the Jedi Temple, an archivist notices it first. Ancient text prophecies recorded in dead languages, preserved through technological and force-based means, are changing, not degrading, changing. Words shift, meanings invert. A prophecy that once spoke of light rising from darkness now reads darkness forgetting why it was dark. Another text, describing the fall of a great evil, now describes the fall of the concept of evil itself. The archivist brings it to the Council's attention. Master Yoda examines the texts personally and feels something he has not felt in 9 centuries. The Force itself uncertain, not dark, not light. Uncertain. Across the galaxy, Force-sensitive beings begin experiencing the same phenomenon simultaneously. Visions that made sense hours ago become paradoxes. Jedi seeking guidance in meditation find the Force responding with conflicting answers to the same question. Sith, attempting to pierce the veil of future sight, receive not clarity but static, as if the future itself has become too unstable to predict. And then, the convergence happens. On Coruscant, in the Senate chambers where Snoke has spent months weaving webs of control, Palpatine makes his move. The Sith Lord has decided that Snoke represents an unacceptable threat to his millennium-long plan. Using every resource at his disposal, Sith assassins, political leverage, dark-side rituals prepared in secret, he orchestrates what should be an inescapable trap. Snoke attends a Senate session, ostensibly to observe. Instead, he walks into a kill box designed by the galaxy's most accomplished manipulator. Snoke smiles. "I was wondering when you'd try this," he says to the empty air. And then to Palpatine, through the Force, directly into the mind of a being who has shielded his thoughts for decades. "Did you really think I didn't know? I've known since the moment I arrived. I am your plan's logical conclusion, what you would become if you had actual vision instead of merely ambition." The Senate chamber erupts into chaos as the trap springs and immediately subverts. Every assassin Palpatine positioned has been counterpositioned by Snoke's agents. Every political ally Palpatine thought secure has been compromised. The Sith Lord realizes, in a moment of crystalline horror, that he hasn't been hunting Snoke. Snoke has been dismantling him piece by piece, and this confrontation is not Palpatine's trap but Snoke's revelation. The battle that erupts between them is not lightsabers and Force lightning, though both are present. It's a battle of wills, of destinies colliding, of two beings who have each believed themselves the inevitable master of galactic fate, discovering that inevitability itself has become negotiable. On Denova, Kefka feels the disturbance and decides it's time to stop playing small. He's been entertaining himself with local despair, but the Force itself is rippling with something delicious, genuine cosmic uncertainty. He reaches out, not with power but with philosophy, and broadcasts into the Force itself. Not words, not thoughts, just the pure, distilled essence of his worldview. Nothing means anything. All structure is temporary. All purpose is self-delusion. All hope is a lie you tell yourself before disappointment. The Force convulses. Across the galaxy, Jedi collapse mid-meditation. Not from attack, from exposure to an idea the Force cannot process. Some recover, some don't. 3 Jedi Masters on distant worlds simply stop breathing. Their connection to the Force severed, not by violence but by the introduction of a concept that treats the Force itself as a joke. On the Outer Rim, Sukuna senses the chaos and feels something he hasn't felt since the Heian era. Real excitement. Something is breaking on a cosmic scale. Something is being destroyed that cannot be replaced. He reaches out with his own will, not to control or corrupt, but simply to hunger. The Force responds and part of it dies, not metaphorically, literally. Regions of space that have been saturated with Force energy for eons suddenly become voids. Life doesn't die there, but the connection to that cosmic energy that thing Jedi call the Force simply ceases, as if Sukuna has consumed it. 3 philosophies of annihilation, acting simultaneously across the galaxy, each one a poison the Force has no immunity to. Kefka's nihilism infects the Force's sense of purpose. Snoke's absolute control fractures the Force's natural flow. Sukuna's hunger literally devours portions of the Force itself. The combined effect is catastrophic. In the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, Master Yoda feels it happen. The Force, that eternal companion, that cosmic presence he has walked beside for 900 years, breaks. Not into dark and light, not into sides or philosophies. It simply breaks, fragmenting into pieces that no longer communicate, no longer form a coherent whole. He falls to his knees, and for the first time in his long life, he cannot feel the Force's guidance. It's still there, he can still touch it, still use it, but the certainty is gone. The sense of rightness, of cosmic order, of destiny flowing toward balance, gone. Across the galaxy, every Force-sensitive being feels the same rupture. Some scream, some weep, some simply sit in stunned silence, trying to process existence without the cosmic certainty they've relied on. In the Senate chambers, Snoke and Palpatine's battle reaches its crescendo, and then both pause, feeling the same thing. The future has become unwritable. All their plans, all their carefully constructed destinies, have become irrelevant, because the medium through which destiny flows has shattered. Snoke laughs. Not the cruel laugh of victory, but genuine amusement. You spent 1,000 years manipulating fate, and in the end, fate itself collapsed. Poetic. Palpatine, for the first time in his long life, feels genuine fear. On Denova, Kefka dances amid the ruins, conducting an invisible orchestra, laughing at the cosmic-scale confirmation of what he's always known. Meaning was always an illusion, and now the universe finally admits it. On the outer rim, Sukuna grins and says to no one in particular, "Finally, now it gets interesting." The galaxy does not end in this moment, but the Force, that eternal constant, that cosmic certainty that has shaped galactic civilization for tens of thousands of years, is no longer eternal, no longer constant, no longer certain. It exists, but wounded, present, but broken, available, but unreliable. Jedi across the galaxy must relearn what it means to be Jedi without cosmic certainty guiding them. Sith must reshape their philosophy without the dark side's promised inevitability. And ordinary beings, who never touched the Force but always lived in a galaxy shaped by it, must now navigate a universe where the rules have changed in ways they can't even perceive. The Force broke, and in breaking, it revealed that everything built upon it, every philosophy, every certainty, every promise of destiny, was always more fragile than anyone wanted to admit. Time does not heal all wounds. Sometimes it merely grants perspective on how deep they go. 5 years after the arrival, the galaxy has learned to function in its diminished state. The Republic still exists, though Republic has become a technical term rather than meaningful description. Snoke's influence has become so thoroughly integrated into governance structures that no one remembers what government looked like before. He does not rule openly. There is no Emperor Snoke, no public figurehead. Instead, there is simply authority, efficient and absolute, and no one can quite remember when they consented to it or why resistance seems so pointless. But Snoke himself has vanished. Not died. Death would leave evidence, ripples, confirmation. He simply ceased appearing. Some believe he achieved his ultimate goal and departed. Others theorize he was consumed by his own web of control, becoming so distributed through systems of power that individual existence became unnecessary. The Jedi believe something else, that Snoke was erased, that in the cosmic chaos of the Force's breaking, something older and more terrible than him decided he had outlived his usefulness. The truth remains unknown. Only his legacy persists, a galaxy that has forgotten how to govern itself, because it learned to be governed. Kefka's fate is more theatrical because of course it is. He remained on Denova for 3 years, perfecting his philosophy of purposelessness, until one day he simply stopped. Not died. Stopped. A patrol found him in the ruins of the planetary capital, sitting amid his painted nightmares, staring at the sky with an expression of boredom. "I broke it," he said when they found him. "I actually broke it. The Force, hope, meaning I broke all of it." He sounded disappointed. "And now there's nothing left to mock." He stood, brushed ash from his coat, and walked away. No one stopped him. No one could. He wandered the galaxy for another year, appearing randomly, occasionally breaking something else just to see if it would spark joy. It never did. Eventually, he found a world on the edge of known space, a planet whose inhabitants had evolved beyond technology, beyond civilization, into something approaching pure philosophical contemplation. He stayed there for 6 months. Then one day, laughter echoed from the monastery where he'd been residing. Not the cruel, mocking laughter that had become his signature. Different laughter. Confused laughter. The kind of laughter that suggests someone has discovered a joke they don't understand but find hilarious anyway. When the monks investigated, Kefka was gone. Some say he found a way back to his own universe. Others claim he laughed himself out of existence, finally encountering a paradox even he couldn't resolve. The most disturbing theory, whispered among Jedi seers, is that he's still there somewhere in the space between meaning and meaninglessness, laughing at a joke the universe isn't ready to hear. Sukuna's departure is simplest because it required no mystery. After 5 years of hunting, fighting, killing, and discovering that even the galaxy's strongest opponents eventually became predictable, he grew bored. Utterly, completely bored. The Jedi he fought became cautious. The Sith avoided him. The Republic learned to evacuate regions he approached. There was no challenge left, no surprise. No joy in the hunt when the prey has learned to simply flee. He stood on a dead world, dead by his own hand, and realized he'd made a mistake. This galaxy was already dying when he arrived. He'd just accelerated the process, and in doing so, eliminated the interesting parts. With a sigh that sounded almost disappointed, he reached into the Force, not to control it, but to taste it the same way he'd tasted it when arriving, looking for the flavor of other universes, other hunting grounds. The Force, broken and fragmented as it was, still remembered how to open doors between realities. Sukuna stepped through, and somewhere in the multiverse, another reality learned to fear 4 eyes and a smile that promises beautiful violence. He left behind a single message, carved into a moon's surface in letters 50 miles high. Better toys next time. The galaxy they left behind is forever changed. The Jedi Order survives, but as a shadow of its former self. The certainty of the light side, the promise of balance, the prophecy of the chosen one, all relegated to history, to mythology, to stories told to remind people that once the universe made sense. The Sith endure because darkness always endures, but their philosophy has become hollow. How do you pursue domination when the structure you sought to dominate has already collapsed? Ordinary people adapt because ordinary people always do. They raise children, they build homes, they fall in love and bury their dead, and find moments of joy in the spaces between tragedy. The galaxy is darker now, more uncertain, more aware of its own fragility, but life continues, not because hope has returned, not because meaning has been restored, but because the alternative to living is unacceptable, even in a universe that has learned that acceptance means nothing. In the Jedi Temple, Master Yoda sits alone in meditation, feeling the broken Force flow around him, and thinks about a truth that 3 beings from other universes taught through their mere existence. The galaxy's greatest weakness was never the dark side. It was belief that the Force had a plan, that destiny was real, that meaning was inherent rather than constructed. 3 monsters came and proved that belief itself could be weaponized. And the galaxy that survives is one that must now choose: rebuild belief knowing it's a lie, or learn to live in truth's terrible absence. Somewhere in the dark, laughter echoes. It might be memory, it might be warning, or it might just be the universe finally learning to laugh at itself.